The FIA has just reopened the championship. This is one of the biggest championship twists Formula One has ever seen, so subscribe right now to follow every update as the FIA prepares its final ruling. Lando Norris crossed the finish line in Abu Dhabi to roaring applause, celebrating what looked like the defining moment of his career. But just as the champagne dried, the FIA quietly initiated a new investigation, one that could flip the championship result upside down. It wasn't public at first. Only a few insiders knew. But now, it's confirmed, Norris McLaren is under formal post-pre. But this time, the telemetry didn't line up. FIA engineers spotted inconsistencies in the energy deployment patterns of Norris' car, especially during the final laps when he was defending under pressure. The figures suggested irregular bursts of hybrid power enough to draw suspicion. This wasn't just about performance gains. It was about whether the car operated within the rules the entire race. As soon as those figures raised flags, the FIA widened its scope. They began examining ride height measurements and floor wear, comparing Norris' MCL 38 against baseline tolerances. What they found was unusual, asymmetric plank wear, concentrated around the rear left section. This can suggest a setup that's running lower than permitted, giving extra downforce through corners at the cost of legality. The FIA doesn't guess. They measure. And what they saw forced them to act. But the most damning part may not be mechanical, it could be radio communication. McLaren engineers were heard instructing Norris to switch to a specific energy mode during a virtual safety car period, with wording that some insiders say bordered on coded language. Normally, teams walk a fine line with strategy talk. But in this case, with energy spikes happening immediately after, the timing is now part of the FIA's evidence package. The combination of verbal instruction and telemetry alignment may point to an orchestrated breach. All of this spells a potential nightmare for McLaren and an unexpected opportunity for Max Verstappen. The Dutchman finished the race in second, but only 2 points behind in the championship. If Norris is penalized even with a time drop or disqualification, Verstappen would leap into first place and clinch a fourth world title. Red Bull is staying quiet, but inside the garage, the legal team is already reviewing all procedural avenues. This isn't unprecedented. Formula One has seen post-race title drama before, most notably in 2021. But this time, the fight is based on technical evidence, not stewarding controversy. That gives the FIA a narrower margin for interpretation. Either the car complied or it didn't. If the outcome falls against McLaren, it won't be debated, it will be enforced, with Verstappen standing as the direct beneficiary. What was seen as a lost championship could be recovered in the quiet corridors of FIA headquarters, not on track. The paddock is holding its breath. Teams are waiting. Journalists are digging. Fans are glued to every statement. And Norris, once again, must prove not just that he can win but that he did so within the lines. Meanwhile, Verstappen watches, waits, and prepares. Because sometimes in Formula One, the race isn't over at the checkered flag. The FIA's investigation is built on hard numbers, not opinions. After the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, the standard post-race data sweep flagged anomalies in Lando Norris' hybrid power deployment. Under current regulations, teams must submit pre-approved energy deployment maps that govern how much electrical boost can be used per sector, per lap. What the FIA found in Norris' telemetry didn't match the declared values. His car showed spikes of additional NGUK output, specifically in the second and third sectors, areas where he pulled significant time on Verstappen during critical laps. These irregular power surges are not subtle. According to internal FIA data reviewed by senior scrutineers, the power increase appears at precise corner exits, suggesting intentional calibration rather than random fluctuation. If McLaren's deployment strategy changed after park-firm conditions without official notification, this would constitute a direct breach of Article 5.2.2 of the technical regulations. The punishment for such a breach is not symbolic, it's structural. It can lead to disqualification from the event. But it's not just energy deployment under the microscope. FIA compliance officers also examined the floor wear patterns and ride height settings on Norris' MCL 38. The measurements taken post-race showed excessive wear on the rear left skid block, which signals that the car may have been running too low to the ground for extended periods. While that setup can provide aerodynamic advantages increasing downforce and cornering speed, it violates Article 3.5.9, which mandates minimum plank thickness post-race. And again, there's no gray area. If it's under the limit, the car is illegal, period. The evidence doesn't stop there. A growing concern inside the FIA is the timing of certain radio messages between Norris and his race engineer. Around lap 47, just as Verstappen closed within DRS range, McLaren issued a coded-sounding instruction referencing Delta 5 override. Immediately afterward, Norris' car delivered an unexplained energy burst through Sector 3, gaining him half a second over Verstappen. Investigators are now cross-referencing radio logs with telemetry overlays looking for proof that the team knowingly used strategic communication to bypass software restrictions. McLaren has responded by saying all systems operated within legal tolerances and that the floor damage could have resulted from curb strikes. But the FIA isn't treating this as a minor incident. Multiple departments including the Technical Delegates Office and the Sporting Integrity Unit are now involved. A full review dossier is being compiled and will be submitted to the World Motorsport Council if rule-breaking is confirmed. This could escalate from a technical infraction to a disciplinary case. Meanwhile, Red Bull is preparing its case. While they have not filed a protest, they have exercised their right under Article 14.1 to request a formal clarification of Norris' car legality, post-race. That legal pressure is not accidental. Red Bull is laying the groundwork for a title reversal should the FIA confirm that Norris' car was not compliant. In that scenario, Verstappen, who finished P2, would inherit the win and become world champion by 2 points. The margin is razor thin, but the implications are massive. This is Formula One operating at its most intense level. It's not about blame, it's about process. It's about compliance, timing, and technical exactitude. The sport has spent years building its regulatory backbone, and now that framework is being tested under championship pressure. For Norris, the evidence must clear him beyond doubt. For Verstappen, all he needs is one confirmed infraction. One ruling. One signature. And the title is his off the track, and on a technicality grounded in rulebook precision. Inside the McLaren garage, the mood flipped from euphoria to paralysis almost overnight. What had been celebrated as Lando Norris' defining moment now hangs by a thread, threatened by a procedural error or engineering oversight. Engineers, strategists, and compliance officers are working through the night not to prepare for the next race, but to defend a race they've already won. The celebration is over. What's left now is cold, clinical survival mode and the realization that the trophy could slip through their fingers before the season even has time to cool. Norris, still emotionally drained from the high of his first major Grand Prix win, has been shielded from media. He's gone quiet on social platforms, and sources inside the team suggest he's been advised to stay completely off the record until the FIA reaches a conclusion. For a driver often praised for his openness and light-hearted persona, the sudden silence is deafening. More importantly, the stress of potentially losing his first career-defining victory and possibly the championship without turning a single wheel is psychologically brutal. Team insiders have begun to split. Some believe the technical team's aggressive push for a low-rake setup might have crossed the line. Others suspect the hybrid deployment maps were adjusted too late and not properly documented. And then there's the radio, the gray area between legal instruction and coded manipulation. The concern is no longer whether a mistake was made. The concern is whether it can be legally defended under scrutiny this intense. A breach, even without intent, could still trigger a race result reversal. Red Bull, in stark contrast, is operating like a championship team and waiting. There are no statements, no protests, no pressure. Just silence and preparation. Behind closed doors, Verstappen's legal advisors, technical directors, and media handlers are reviewing every precedent, from 1994 to 2021. They know how this works. The FIA doesn't act unless the evidence is overwhelming. And if they do act, Red Bull wants to be ready not just with a legal case, but with a narrative of legitimacy. One built on compliance, patience, and precision. Verstappen himself is calm, almost too calm. While Norris battles the weight of expectation and scrutiny, Max is doing what he's done all year, working, training, and preparing for the next race or the next ruling. Those close to him say he isn't obsessing over the verdict. Instead, he's focusing on being ready to walk back into the spotlight with composure. If the title comes, it won't be something he lobbied for. It'll be something that fell into his lap because the rulebook demanded it. Elsewhere in the paddock, teams are watching nervously. Ferrari has already called for absolute transparency in the investigation. Mercedes, still navigating its own internal rebuild, has declined to comment, but insiders suggest they're watching the FIA's every move closely. For the sports leadership, this isn't just about one race. It's about maintaining credibility at the peak of competition. If this decision feels rushed or politically charged, the fallout could damage F1's competitive integrity for seasons to come. The irony is almost cinematic. A season that was defined by tight battles, surprise victories, and rising stars might end not in a wheel-to-wheel duel, but in a closed-door FIA conference room. And in that quiet space, far from the roar of the engines, the fate of two careers will be decided: one driver who could lose it all, and another who might win everything without firing a shot. In the end, this is Formula One. Fast on track, brutal off it.